Good evening, afternoon, morning. I don't know when you're watching this video, so I figured I'd cover all my bases, but welcome to the Daily Grind. I'm Steven, your host. Vale End Cemetary, Wilton, New Hampshire. Let's talk about a little bit about Wilton and learn a little bit about the cemetery before we get into it. The town of Wilton was settled in 1739 and established as a town in 1762. Looking at the town from the town website, wiltonnh.gov, specifically the visitors and historic attractions, there's no mention of the Vale End Cemetery. I also went to the stuff hidden in plain sight page, and there's still nothing mentioned about this cemetery. So in 2022, with a population of just under 4,000, 3,966, it is the 100th most populated city in the state of New Hampshire out of 238 cities, even though it's considered a town. So it's right in the middle there somewhere with population. Let's look at some reviews of this town, see what some people had to say. This is a 1-star review from a former resident. Wonder why he's a former resident if he's given 1 star. Property is inexpensive, but taxes are high. In return, you get poor town services and schools. Terrible value. This next review is a 5-star review from a current resident. Wilton is a great small town. I have lived here my entire life. The community is great, and there is lots of outdoor activities to do around here due to the great scenery. So, alright. They like living there. Next one's a 3-star review, so right in the middle. I got 1 bad, 1 really good, and 1 right in the middle. So 3-star review from a current resident. I think Wilton is a lovely place, and its proximity to Manchester and Peterborough is excellent. However, I would love it if the town invested more in its beautiful green spaces, perhaps a vast public park, community garden, bike trails, etc. The town center is also in desperate need of revitalizing and can be an eyesore, and the local school is in need of better opportunities for its students. But if any of these things don't bother you and you enjoy rural tranquility, then this is the place for you. As far as vast public places, I think the cemetery is a vast public place. Why don't you go there and maybe have a picnic? The cemetery, Vale End, is first mentioned in town records in 1772 when the town voted to, quote, fence the burying ground. Then in 1780, the town voted to upgrade the fence to a stone wall. Probably a little more eye-appealing to the locals or people passing through. Remember our review complaining about eyesores? So, there you go. In 1780, when they voted to upgrade to that stone wall, they also voted to build a road to the cemetery. Someone donated more land to the burying ground in 1869, and in 1871, it was named Vale End Cemetery. So why are we talking about this? Vale End is known for its paranormal activity. Paranormal investigators say it's highly active, with several claiming that their specialized equipment is often triggered, batteries quickly drain but are fully charged, and some even say they have seen blue light to full apparitions and even creatures known as pukwagis. I'm not a paranormal investigator, I'm just some idiot on YouTube. Let's get that out of the way right now. So pukwagis, I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. Pukwagi, pukwujis, pukwajis. But I'm going to pronounce it how I'm pronouncing it, so I don't want to hear it. Let's talk a little bit about these little bastards. Pukwagis. So they're magical little people of the forest in Algonquin folklore, similar to European gnomes or fairies. Pukwagi stories are told throughout the northeastern United States, southeastern Canada, and Great Lakes regions. However, their nature and folklore varies depending on the tribe. For Great Lakes tribes, which doesn't really come into play here because we're in the northeast, not the Great Lakes, the pukwagi is considered a mischievous but basically good-natured creature who plays tricks on people but is not dangerous. So maybe like that a-hole coworker you have that wants to always play tricks or pranks. But for other tribes in the northeast, such as the Abenaki and other northeastern Algonquin tribes, the pukwagi can be dangerous, but only to people who treat them with disrespect. In Winnipeg and other tribes of southern New England, pukwagis are carpacious and dangerous creatures who play harmless tricks or even help a human neighbor, but are just as likely to steal children or commit deadly acts of sabotage. Well, I know if they stole my child, they'd probably bring him back after a little bit because, yeah. The magical origins of the Pukwagis come from the Winnepaug story that says these little creatures originated in Hockomock Swamp in Massachusetts. We might have to talk about that later. In another episode, but we'll see. Pukwagis are usually described as being knee-high or even smaller. The word Pukwagi is Algonquin for little man of the woods that vanishes. I've read different sources about these things. Some of these sources say that the Pukwagi is not a spirit or a ghost. It's actually a living, breathing creature. Others can say there's spirits. So I'm not sure what exactly they are as far as that. They have magical powers which vary from tribe to tribe, but may include the ability to turn invisible, confuse people, or make them forget things, or shapeshift into cougars or other dangerous animals, or bring harm to people by staring at them. Basically, they're pissed off little dwarfs. Like my ex-wife. Who would have known? Maybe she's a Pukwagi. These have been seen at Vale End Cemetary. Let's find out about that. Paranormal investigator Fiona Brom and 3 others were at the cemetery conducting an investigation in the spring of 2000. On this day, the only good activity was a high level of EMF, or electromagnetic field readings, near the Blue Lady's grave. I'll talk about the Blue Lady later. Brom's group decided to end their investigation as dark was setting in. Brom headed for the Blue Lady's headstone for one more round of photos. That's when she spotted what she referred to as a little Grover guy. Explaining the incident on her website, Hollow Hill, she said, and I quote, "I've spotted what I've since called a little Grover guy, about 2 or 3 feet from me. He was short, between 2 and 3 feet tall. He looked like he was covered with fur and disproportionately skinny like Grover, the popular puppet character from Sesame Street." Unquote. Brom said the figure was a vivid shade of red. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. I don't know if it's Brom or Broom. But although surprised, she was not bothered by what she was seeing. As she continued toward the Blue Lady's grave, Brom encountered an invisible force she believed was something profoundly evil. She suddenly noticed there were dozens of the small fur-covered creatures. Brom wanted to document what she was seeing. Her camera seemed to reveal more of the little creatures. Brom explains, quote, "As I raised my camera and looked through the viewfinder, the little Grover guy seemed to multiply. When my camera clicked, I saw 3 of them clearly outlined by the flash. Once she was satisfied with the pictures she took, she had a strong impression that she was in danger, so she hightailed it and got the fuck out of there, along with the rest of her crew." When Brom had the film developed, and for my younger viewers, back then you had cameras that were only cameras. You couldn't take your smartphone and get a digital picture with it. You actually had to put rolls of film inside of these cameras and then take them to someone that knew what the hell they were doing to bring them to a special room and develop and print them or whatever they do to them. I don't really know the process, but it took a little bit longer than what it does today. But anyway, after the photos were developed, Brom discovered all the shots she had taken were completely black with the exception of a single shot. In it, there was a red shape, the same vivid color as the creature she had seen. Having hundreds of ghost hunts under her belt, Fiona was genuinely frightened by her encountering in Vale End and says, in fact, it was the only time she's ever been frightened on an investigation. So she was at the Blue Lady's grave. Who is the Blue Lady? Well, let's find out. The Blue Lady, Mary Ritter Spalding, died in 1808 at the age of 35. Her burial site is in the back corner of Vale End. There are rumors surrounding her death, and perhaps she died under suspicious circumstances. Fingers have been pointed at her husband, but of course they have, because it's always pointed at the husband. However, nothing has been proven. She married her husband in 1795, and between her marriage in 1795 and her death, she had 7 kids. Yeah. The Blue Lady is said to materialize as a column of blue light over the grave on warm, foggy nights. Could there be an explanation to this? The blue light appears on warm, foggy nights? Maybe. I'm sure someone could come up with some sort of scientific, rational explanation, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Many books and folklore describe Spaulding as a well-mannered woman who regularly attended church and healed others with various prayers and herbs. Although she supposedly haunts the cemetery, no one really knows why she haunts the cemetery. Many rituals are performed at the Blue Lady's grave. Locals claim during these rituals, participants leave various items at the gravestone, including shiny coins. So if you go there and visit and see coins, do not remove them from the grave. Not only is this disrespectful, but they say it could bring bad luck to your health. Over the years, things with the Blue Lady have shifted to something sinister or even demonic. Remember Fiona Braun that I talked about in the paranormal investigation in the spring of 2000? Well, she was there before that in November of 1999. And with Braun during this investigation was her photographer Nancy and Nancy's daughter Noreen. They heard nothing but harmless stories about the Blue Lady. As they approached the headstone, something described as dark rose from a nearby grave to Spaulding's. So to say the least, the three, they got out of there. After Nancy and Noreen returned home, they called Braun. Noreen wanted to know if anything follows people home from graveyards, but Braun, of course, reassured her that nothing would have followed her home. And from what I've read and what I understand, the reasoning behind this is that if a spirit or a ghost or whatever you want to call it haunts a place, if they could leave that place, then why would they even be there haunting it to begin with? So that's the reasoning behind things not following you, I guess. I'm not an expert, so let's continue. 5 days later, Noreen was found dead in her car in a parking lot in Wilton, New Hampshire. After the autopsy, the coroner claimed that it was a sudden heart attack. Well, apparently this was a very quick death because the parking lot that she was in at the time was busy and she didn't even hit the horn or anything or yell for help. Noreen had no prior history of heart disease or any other health conditions that I could find. Was this bad omens or whatever from the Blue Lady? Who knows? I guess it all depends on what you believe in or don't believe in. But after this, Fiona still returned during the Pukwagi sightings I talked about before this. Because of these crazy stories and these sightings and the Blue Lady and all that stuff, the cemetery is closed after dark. It's apparently heavily patrolled by Wilton police who will remove you from the cemetery after dark if they find you there. Is this to protect you from the Blue Lady or those little Pukwagis? Probably not. There have been stones vandalized, moved around, and stolen through the years. The Blue Lady stone had apparently been broken and posted on eBay for sale at one point. Alright, just got here to Vale End Cemetery in Wilton, New Hampshire. Let's take a walk around. Couldn't have asked for a better day to come out here. I mean, it's overcast, kind of dark. There's still some leaves on the trees, but nice fall day for a walk in the cemetery. And there's a sign clearly saying it's open 7 a.m. to dusk. Any person caught in the cemetery between dusk and 7 a.m. will be arrested. So that's why I'm here during the day, not because I'm scared. Doesn't look so bad. Looks like all the old stones are over on this side. I have read that there is American Revolution soldiers buried here. I haven't seen any. I mean, some of these stones are just so old, you can't even read what's on them. It's like they've disappeared into history. I believe that's her right there. Right over there. Let's go take a look. Alright, so I've got the Blue Lady's headstone right here behind me. Let's take a look at it. Let's see any. Oh, there is some coins on there. Check that out. So some people do leave coins here and do their voodoo. So, Mary Ritter, born January 12th, 1778, or yeah, 1778. Died at age 35. So this is the Blue Lady. Her husband, Isaiah Spalding, died February 24th, 1855, and he lived till 75. But she only lived until 35. Right there. Aged 35. And it does look like the stone has been broken, so maybe at some point someone did break it off and try to sell it on eBay. That's what I've read. Well, before we leave here, I think we're gonna leave a coin for the young lady. I don't know what exact ritual has to be performed, but figured it couldn't hurt. So I just wanted to point out quick that now that I've left Vale End, I'm about 10 minutes away from it. The sky is blue and the sun came out. Probably nothing, just, New England weather, but I think it's kind of funny. It was overcast, dark and dreary while I was there, and on my way there, now that I've been there and left, it's sunny out. This is eventually going to be the fate of all of us. Lost in history, lost in time. Depending on how old you are when you pass or die or move on, expire, buy the farm, whatever you want to put it, you might have, parents around to visit your grave. You might need kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, husband, wife, cousins. You'll have family around for a little bit, but eventually you're going to fade off into time because all those people that were visiting you in your grave are going to eventually pass on and die too. On a time, there's going to be no relatives that remember you, and you're just going to be lost to time, lost to history, lost to the past. That's what we all get to look forward to. It's like they've disappeared into history.